ladies and gentlemen, councillors, staff, thank you very much for coming along tonight. I declare this meeting open. Under announcements, I wish to extend the council's congratulations to John Cowell, who was awarded the Australian Fire Services Medal in the Queen's Birthday Honours List. Well done, John. And on a more sombre note, I also note the passing of one of our long-serving employees, Mr Neil Simmons, passed away and was put to rest yesterday. So sad times for Neil's family, but very much appreciated long-term employee of our city. We have Councillor McGwell is requesting leave of absence until the 10th of June. So can someone prepare to move that? Councillor Cook, Councillor Hayward, all in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Declarations of interest. I have declarations from Councillor Kelly, item 11.4.3, or is it 10.4.3? Impartiality interest, as he's a part owner of property in Alexander Street, which is 500 metres from the Plaza Shopping Centre. Councillor Michelle Steck declares a financial interest in item 10.4.3, same item, as the partner owns shopping centres within the city and the shires, adjoining shires. Councillor Jones declares an impartiality interest in item 10.5.1, as she is the chairman of ACWest. Are there any further declarations of interest, councillors? Thank you. Public questions. I have, Mr Smith, I have a series of questions submitted by you, and I will allow questions 1, which is in 2 parts, and question 2. The rest of your questions, question 3, has 7 parts to it. We will include them in the agenda, in the minutes, I beg your pardon, and we will respond to you by correspondence. So please come forward and ask your questions 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question 1, I refer to the accounts for April 2015, endorsed by Council, and note the following items. 2nd of April 2015, invoice 01045 for transfer fees to the Department of Lands. 20th of April 2015, invoice 6675 8603, transfer fees for $1,076.60. And I asked to what land do these transactions relate, and have the new titles issued as yet, and if so, can a copy of these titles be provided? And 2, could Council please advise the total cost of the street art painting on walls, including the amounts paid to the individual artists and businesses associated with them?
Thank you, Mr Smith. We'll respond to the rest of your questions in writing, and they will be included in the minutes of next council meeting.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm aware that some of you wanted to ask further questions tonight's meeting. Under our standing orders, they have to be submitted well before, 24 hours before each meeting. There are a number of you that want to speak tonight, and I'm hoping that when those persons, if granted approval to speak, if you wanted to weave into those presentations, which are 5 minutes duration each, some of the points that you want to get across, that would be highly recommended. Minutes of the ordinary meeting passed. Can I move it, please? Councillor Giles, seconded Councillor McCleary, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Minutes of the Youth Advisory, mover, Councillor Morris, seconded Councillor Hayward. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Councillors, are there any petitions tonight? Thank you. Now we have requests for presentations. Mr Smith requests to present on items 10.3.1, 10.4.2, 10.5.1 and 10.5.3. Those who approve that presentation, please indicate. Those who do not, please indicate. That request is denied. Have a request from Mr Peter Elderfield for Friends of Hartley Anderson Reserve wishing to speak on make a presentation on 10.4.2. Those who support that, please indicate. Those who don't, that's approved. Mr. Peter Suckling, I've got in brackets Michelle Horn, so I guess Peter, it's just you. 10.4.2, same item. Those who approve Mr. Suckling giving a presentation, please indicate. That's carried, that's approved. Anne Avery wishes also to speak on item 10.4.2. Those who give approval, please indicate. That's approved. Gay North wishes to speak on the same item 10.4.2. Those who approve, please indicate. Thank you. Mr. Gary Fitzgerald and Dan Perkins Builders wishes to speak on item 10.4.3. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we do, we go through the council agenda, and when we get to your items, 10.4.2 and 10.4.3, I'll invite you to come forward. You do your 5 minutes each, and then we will deal with the items. It's very smooth and easy. Councillors, coming out for discussion of our agenda is 10.2.1, which requires an absolute majority. Same with 10.2.2. 10.3.1, we have a couple of options there to deal with. 10.4.2, which also requires an absolute majority as well as the presentations. 10.4.3, we have the impartiality interest as well as the presentation. 10.5.1, impartiality interest by Councillor Jones. Are there any other items that councillors wish to discuss tonight? That being the case, can I have someone move the bulk? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Seconder, Councillor McCleary, all in favour. Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.2.1, we need an absolute majority. Councillors, can I have someone move the executive recommendation? Councillor Giles, Councillor Jones, all in favour. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.2.2, Councillor Jones, Councillor Hayward, all in favour. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll scoot down to item 10.3.1. Councillors, just bear with me for a second. Someone prepared to move the one of the recommendations, Councillor Councillor Kelly, by a whisker. Your second. Councillor Morris, which are you moving? The executive recommendation. I need someone to move the executive recommendation. Councillor Kelly. Seconded, Councillor Steele. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think when I looked at this during the week, I looked at what is positive in this town and what we can do to make our places as attractive as possible. And I thought to myself that the executive recommendation included no negatives, which was great. It's a positive, in principle, support to continue to attract an iconic event to Bunbury. And we can give consideration to funding that. We're under no obligation at this stage, and we can put ourselves in a position that if we see that iconic event, as they call it, then we can grab that opportunity. As I went through there, Mr. Mayor, as I had a chat with you today, I think that we should be seen as the city of opportunity. That's what we are, the city of opportunity for a lot of people in Western Australia, and where new business is welcome. By having events here, by being prepared, if you like, the old Boy Scout motto, right, being prepared for something that may come along, and to be prepared for it with some funding, I think is an ideal opportunity. I like the word opportunity. We are the city of opportunity, so I'm prepared to support this executive recommendations on the basis that we need to be prepared. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Steele, you're fine. Councillor Morris, did you wish to speak against this, or?
Totally agree with Deputy Mayor, except in relation to the amount that we would like to actually have in reserve for a new iconic event. Now, we're looking at a group of people, a very, very active group of people that have feelers out in the community in relation to getting events coming into our city. Last year, or in this financial year, they actually didn't spend $76,000. They could very easily have spent a lot by going through and seeing just exactly the events that were put in front of them. But they knocked back because they didn't meet the criteria. These are people who are very, very conscious in terms of a tight budget. But what they'd like to do is to actually have that money transferred over to this next financial year, plus the $100,000 if, and only if, the same as we had this year, if they find another iconic event that meets their criteria.
Councillor Morris, sorry to interrupt you, but I do need for you to tell me what your amendment will be.
The amendment would be to following the Bunbury Events Coordination Group recommendations of 1 and 2.
So you basically want to move, number 2 is carried, that's in the exec recommendation,
yes,
basically. So you want number 2 to be, will give consideration of funding an iconic event up to the, by reserving allocation of $100,000. Want that included in number 2. Can I see if you can get a seconder for that?
Okay.
Question, please.
Sure.
My understanding of what Councillor Morris just said, that the money that they didn't spend, the $75,000, you want that carried over plus the $100,000, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll just wait for Liz to, Councillor Cook, I'll just get Liz to ensure that she's got this. So the difference will be that the figure of $100,000 will be included in part 2 of the executive recommendation. The CEO might like to give Liz a hand with that one. Is it good? Are you happy with that, Councillor Morris? Is that your intent?
Yep.
So is there a seconder to that? Councillor Cook.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Morris?
What we're looking at is an opportunity, and it basically goes back to what the Deputy Mayor was saying. Opportunity, if it knocks, we're willing to open the door and listen to whatever group or event that they propose. It's not as if it's guaranteed, and that's the real crux. We have had several ideas come forward over this past year, and the group said no. They didn't think it was worthwhile in relation to $100,000. So we're looking at a very, very selective group of people that will say no if they don't think it's going to float. And this is why I think that we should give the opportunity for the committee to follow through. Because if we don't come up with the extra $100,000 in terms of a contingency fee, effectively the events that we had sponsored last year, if it carries over, the money has already been taken. So the usefulness of the committee would be at risk or jeopardy. Thank you.
Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, I'd urge you to support this amendment. I mean, it's a very specific amount, $100,000. It will not be used unless the events committee or group recommend that it be used, and I really want to support the group. We did agree to form this group a couple of years ago, and I'd love to see us get behind it wholeheartedly and support their wishes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. And Councillor, just to reiterate, with these events, the CEO has been delegated authority to give the final blessing or approval on events. Councillor Steele.
Just a point of clarification. If there's an amendment to the first one, aren't Councillor Kelly and I supposed to accept whether we're going to accept the amendment or not?
No.
Under what order?
It's understanding orders. It's an amendment. You do your own research, Councillor Steele.
I don't need to be rude.
Councillor Kelly, I think, is relaxed with this.
Just got a quick question though, just the budget side of things. Can I just explain how that sits in our budget? Seeing we're just about to get to that point.
It will need to be included in the budget as a contingency. So is there a speaker against the amendment? Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I understand the argument, but I actually feel that this is covered in the executive recommendation in that we've already said that we'll give consideration to funding an iconic event should it arise and should there be a business case for it. So I don't actually see why we need to change that to what is in the amendment. I'd be very happy to consider an event as we did in the last budget for an event that came up. And I do worry that with our very tight budget, we're going to have to find where that $100,000 is going to come from. And we've already, I think, done some very hard work in trimming that budget, and I can't personally think of something that I would like to trim extra to get that $100,000. So whilst I accept the thrust of the argument, I do think that that money could become available should there be something that is really compelling. So I will vote against the amendment and for the executive recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Giles. Speaker 4. Councillor Morris, do you want to close? Okay, I'll put the amendment, and that is to include the sum of $100,000. All those in favour, please indicate. Those against? The amendment is carried. It becomes part of the executive recommendation. Is there part of the recommendation that has been moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Steele? Is there a speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thanks very much. Sorry, Councillor Steele against. We move to 10.4.2, and I invite Mr. Elderfield to come forward. Peter, 5 minutes is the allocated time. Welcome.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and councillors. My name is Peter Elderfield, and I want to speak mainly regarding Hartley Anderson Reserve, adjacent to which I live, and I've lived there for 40 years. The Friends of the Hartley Anderson Reserve have for more than 30 years cooperated with council officers to monitor, maintain and revegetate Hartley Anderson Reserve, and we feel well placed to judge its future use. We broadly accept the thrust of the Council's recommendations, with at least one exception, and that relates to Hartley Anderson Reserve. The reserve's used almost exclusively by dog owners who walk their dogs from up to a kilometre away, though some drive to the reserve. The majority, I suspect, live close enough to use it for those purposes. The Friends of the Reserve have not been made aware of any issues or requests or incidents which would suggest that a change of usage is needed. For those of you who don't know the reserve very well, it's made up of a bush area to the west and a grassy area which is kindly maintained by the council with mowing probably 4 or 5 times a year. I'm not sure of the exact figure, but it's well tended and enjoyed, as I say, mainly by dog owners. It seems illogical to exclude the grassed maintained area, which has no children's playgrounds or any other obvious issue which might bear on it, whilst including natural bushland. Now, the fact that the natural bushland is included isn't in fact an issue because there's no obvious fauna there, though probably it does exist. But again, no issues have arisen in either part of the park. So the status quo presents as a logical way to proceed. Changing the status quo at Hartley Anderson Reserve would have a deleterious effect on the local community, as well as on the usefulness and the amenity of the reserve. And so the Friends of the Reserve respectfully request that the status quo be maintained. In other words, the western and the eastern end of the reserve be retained as an off-leash area, as we believe it is at the moment. We're pleased that Council has expanded the number of dog exercise areas, it would seem, but I don't pretend to have a good grasp of the other areas of the Council's recommendations. In general terms, dogs need space and trees in the area in which they're going to exercise, They need space to chase and socialise with other dogs, as well as avoiding dogs that perhaps are a little unfriendly. In general terms, personally, I believe that playing fields should probably be off limits, providing that sufficient alternatives are made available. And Hartley Anderson Reserve is everything you would wish for in a dog exercise area. Recent newcomers, I just might point out, to usage of that area have pointed out that they do get the information about off-leash dog exercise areas from the council's website. That seems to be something that those who are looking for such an area do seek out. And that's just for your information. So in summary, we support most of the thrust of the council's recommendations. Increase the number of areas. Dogs, ownership of dogs, exercising dogs is accepted as a healthy pastime, and I'm sure all of you would support that. Please keep the status quo at Hartley Anderson Reserve and allow the whole reserve to be an off-leash area.
Thanks for your time. Mr. Elderfield. Mr. Suckling, welcome to you, Peter, and again 5 minutes.
The Mayor, Mr Brennan, the Executive and Councillors of the City of Bunbury. My name is Peter Suckling of Hudson Road, Bunbury. I'm here to speak on the proposed changes to dog areas within the City of Bunbury, and specifically the area of Middelong Beach, south of Hastie Street. I'm speaking on behalf of a large group of people known as the Hastie Street Dog Walking Group. These people have been walking dogs along this stretch of beach for many years. Myself and my wife Aileen have been walking our dogs along this stretch of beach for 3 generations of dogs, dating back some 25 years. Many of the group that you have behind you have been doing the same for well in excess of that time. It is understood the area in question has, and probably always was, unallocated Crown land, and as such is public land, and will remain that way until the City applies for and then implements a management order over the land. As public land, the area is now to be designated a dog on-leash area. The users of this area are concerned at the loss of amenity which will be caused by this designation. There is also concern at the varying information available to the public, as over a week ago the map available on the City website showed this as dog off-lead, and only when questioned was the correct map posted. The group are also concerned that many other areas of unallocated Crown land have not been included on the information available via this proposed map. The group acknowledge and thank the City Councillors, the Executive, the Mayor and the CEO, Mr Bryan, for the quick and concise responses to questions raised by the groups from those within the group. It is believed that the City's predicament on this land is now better understood by the group. The group does, however, respectfully request that the City consider whether there is scope to remove this section of beach from the list, or to consider it exempt under the Dog Act, as it does not fall within the City town site. As a bare minimum, the group would request the City include all the areas of unallocated Crown land that have been identified by the State Government. Also, with respect to Hay Park, which I note is not included in the table for the agenda item, and many other parks in the Bunbury area, have the City considered the lead of the City of Subiaco with respect to the use of such areas as parks, reserves and sporting venues by dogs? This appears to be quite a progressive step which identifies and caters for the interests of all. The group would also request the City and Rangers exercise some discretion in the interim, that is, between the voting of this resolution and the eventual implementation of a management order over this area south of Hastie Street. As a side, given the area is unallocated Crown land or public land, it is noted the City still erect the nude bathing signs in this area. If this is to continue in the area not under the management order of the City, then perhaps the dog off-leash signs can also be maintained in a similar manner, or at least not be changed from what they are, as to identify one and not the other would appear to disadvantage one group of people using the area over another group of people. I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Anne Avery. Is Anne Avery in the audience? Is Gay North there? Welcome to you, Gay North, and 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Hello, Mayor, councillors and members of the public. My name is Gay North and I'm representing Bunbury Dog Exercise Areas Group. The main area I wish to speak about is Hay Park. I've helped train dogs for many years in dog obedience and responsible dog ownership. With my last 2 dogs, I was involved in helping teach dogs safety at schools, working with the vet and the rangers. Members of this group would like Hay Park open with no time restrictions and be able to exercise dogs in any area as long as we are not interfering with any sport events or other members of the public. We understand that people not picking up after their dogs is a huge issue. The majority of us are responsible and we should not have to suffer for the minority. We would like to see more education to dog owners about picking up after their dogs. We believe that the council is changing the fine of $100 to $200. We would suggest that the rangers become more proactive around Hay Park, cautioning dog owners and handing out brochures about responsible dog ownership with a plastic bag. The new laws about the dog poo should regulate the problem. This area is such a big, safe area to train and exercise our young dogs. People with dogs will understand what I'm saying. I've walked Hay Park since 1984 and it is the best area in Bunbury. People driving down south and towards Perth often stop to let their dogs have a run. We will be happy for a 6-month trial period if council permits to see if it will work. Maybe having discounted training should be offered to those getting cautioned or compulsory education about responsible dog ownership. I would like to briefly address those that let their dogs off lead when sports are being held. There needs to be heavy penalties for that because they are ruining our lovely walks at Hay Park. I think it is wrong to close down all of Hay Park without trying to educate the public. Time restrictions won't work. A few hours morning and afternoons in a small area will put owners and dogs' safety at risk. I will ask for training groups and rescue groups to hand out shy pamphlets to foster carers and dog trainers to help educate them. I offer to walk any councillor around Hay Park to see how safe it is and how much we need this area. Thank you.
Very much. So I'm prepared to move the executive recommendation. Councillor Hayward.
I'm prepared to move it, Mr Mayor, but I'd like to propose a change to the attached map.
Is there someone prepared to move the executive recommendation as it stands? And then we can seek amendments to that.
Mr Mayor, I'll move this stance, but I also have an amendment or 2 that I'll be proposing.
Yeah, we'll take a seat. Thank you, Councillor McCreary. Thank you for letting me know. Is there a seconder to the executive recommendation? Councillor Hayward. Councillor Kelly, do you want to flag your amendment?
I will do so, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I think we've got one written there, which was request that the Chief Executive Officer investigate the establishment of a management order over the sites, we'll call that, commonly known as the beach area south of Hasty Street, and the eastern end of Hartley Anderson Park.
Okay. We'll just hold it there, Councillor Kelly. Yeah, okay there, Liz. So we're just going to add in eastern end of Hartley Anderson Park in with the executive recommendation.
To allow for the area to be included as an off-leash exercise area. Mr Mayor, that's the extent of my amendment for the moment.
Okay. Councillor Hayward, what is your amendment?
I'd like to propose that we remove Middelong Beach and the Hartley Anderson Park altogether from our maps, and that we don't make a ruling in relation to that.
If we do that, I think I'll just seek the CEO's legal advice, but if we do that, they're automatically on leash, all those areas.
I understand that, but we won't have made a decision.
So as long as you're aware of that.
I'm aware that it's a state government decision, but I'm just saying that we ought not to endorse it.
Okay, I'll deal with that one separately. Councillor McCleary, let's have yours as well.
Mr Mayor, I would like to add that all of Hay Park is designated an off-leash exercise area except when the surrounding area of Hay Park is being used for active sporting events or groups playing.
Okay, thank you. We'll deal with these individually, councillors. So the first one is executive recommendation with the modification that Councillor Kelly proposes, that is to include the south of Hasty Street and portion of Hartley Anderson as we seek management orders for those. We're clear on that? Okay. Councillor Hayward, are you prepared to retain your seconding of that?
Yes.
You are. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Kelly. Question, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got three. Two to the executive and one to you, sir. Can you please, the executive, please explain the rationale behind the restricted hours on the outer perimeter of the sporting ovals? Why can't they be unrestricted at any time?
Thanks, Mr Cowell.
Through you, Mr Mayor, they have been restricted in the past, and basically with being consistent with our local laws in the past, and also same time restrictions applied to Hay Park. They were just carried over into the new areas around those sporting ovals. So they have been restricted as per time in previous local laws, and that's just been carried over.
Second question, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I might already have the answer, but why is the off-leash area of Hartley Anderson Park being reduced? What is the rationale behind that?
Yeah, it's the same reason for south of Hasty Street. It's a management order that's not there.
That's what I suspected. Thank you, Mr Mayor. And Mr Mayor, my request to you is can we vote individually on the sites, please, so that we don't have to take the whole lot in one foul swoop?
That's a lot, Councillor Cook. I'd like to facilitate that, but it's a lot, and I'm happy to take these items 1 and 2, and if there's a 3 individually. We do need an absolute majority for each one, so I'm not prepared to go through each of the locations on the map. So, was there a question, Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. It appears that Pelican Point is to be designated as off-leash, and there are some significant concerns being expressed by some of the people living there. In fact, one of whom has been the victim of a dog attack on 2 occasions. And I'm just wondering what opportunity will people at Pelican Point have to express their concerns in relation to the what's now being called an off-leash area?
Thanks, Councillor Jones. My understanding from the officer's report to us in our discussion last Tuesday, there has been a significant amount of public consultation. Now, I'm not clear as to when the decision was made regarding Pelican Point being an off-leash area, but perhaps Mr Cowell, how long has that Pelican Point area been off-leash, or is it a change?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that is a new area that was considered as part of the first consultation, and also part of the surveys that were conducted, public surveys that were conducted.
Okay,
so
that's
it was
fine.
part of the whole consultation process.
Okay, that's fine. So it has been truly out in the public arena for some time. I think we had over 400 responses to the first one and 50 or 90 to the second one. So there has been quite an opportunity given, Councillor Jones. Getting back to the matter, councillors, Councillor Kelly, do you wish to speak to your
just
motion?
Which I assume we'll just take that amendment quickly, Mr Mayor.
I'm taking 1 and 2 as there.
I think I need to speak to the amendment first, Mr Mayor.
I've asked Councillor Hayward if he's happy to accept your amendment. He's nodded, so it become part of your motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just speaking for the recommendation as it is there, Mr Mayor. The staff have put in a lot of time and effort to the getting together of our areas that people are entitled to exercise their dogs. I understand from the discussions that we've held that the changes came about because of changes to the Dog Act. some time, well, less than 12 months ago, I think it was, Mr. Mayor. However, having said that, we've already found a couple of issues in there, particularly relating to the South Hasty Beach or Mindalong Beach, and as more recently what had happened at Hartley Anderson Park, where we have to get management orders over particular areas before we can declare them either on leash, off leash or otherwise. So I'm supporting number one because I believe that the staff have done the job that was required, and number two, to clear up or clean up, if you like, those other two areas that have traditionally been off leash to ensure that they remain so. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll leave it at that. I'm supporting that executive recommendation as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward. Okay. Councillor McCreary, you have an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My amendment, which is not written there, but once again I'll speak it up. All of Hay Park be designated as an off-leash exercise area except when the surrounding area of Hay Park has been used for active sporting events, including training or groups playing, that's the children playing, etc.
I'll see if I can get a seconder for that amendment. Is there a seconder? Councillor Steck. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dogs are not our whole life, but they make our life whole. Walking your dog is a very sociable exercise for both. The physical and mental health benefits are a fact. Dogs love to run, people not so much. So providing for off-leash areas is important for our dog-loving community. Accessibility of our off-leash areas is vital for our seniors and disabled persons. Therefore, we must have many choices of large areas available as possible. Placing timeframes, restrictions of off-leash, which we haven't discussed a lot tonight, but it is my concern, Councillor Cook brought it up, is not the solution for sharing public areas. We do not have the resources to police time frames. People who flaunt dog rules now will continue to do so. Time frames, curfews will cause confrontation. We have dog rage. Let's not encourage xenophobia with any new local dog rules we implement, which includes the Hay Park. Education and encourage dog owners to self-regulate when their dog should be on a lead is the best way forward. For example, if there is a person or two playing on an immediate area where they're walking their dog, it's leash on, no argument. KISS our dog regulations. In other words, keep it simple, same as our metropolitan areas and neighbours. Game on, leash on. That is what I have to say.
Councillor Steck. Okay. Is there a speaker against the amendment? And that we're dealing with the Hay Park being designated off-leash except when the surrounding area has been used for active sporting events. Councillor Giles, question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just a little unclear and perhaps like some clarification. How is that going to be, for a better word, policed? For example, someone's walking their dog's off leash, and all of a sudden some children start kicking the ball, and then the ranger comes along and says, "Well, you need to have your." I mean, I'm just trying to get some clarification about how this is actually going to work in practice.
Yeah, it's a good question, Councillor Giles. Mr. CEO, do you have any words of wisdom?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know that some of the Metro councils have adopted a very similar strategy to this, and we'll certainly liaise with them to see how they're enforcing it. And obviously, if there's issues, we could come back on that.
Speaker against the amendment.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to have to speak against it, not on the basis that I'd be opposed to designating it as an off-leash area, but on the basis that this has come up without having had that deference for our staff to go and investigate how they're going to regulate this. It's an issue in my own mind that I can't support just unilaterally saying, right, okay, it's an off-leash exercise area without paying respect to our staff, our rangers, the police, the people who are going to have to regulate it before they've been able to go away, and as the CEO suggested, going to other shires in Perth or wherever else and actually working out whether or not that's going to apply to our city of Bunbury. This is a very large area. It is not something like a Rosalie Park half the size. So I won't be supporting it, but I would suggest that it's up to any other councillor here to move that we defer this until that exercise had been done. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Speaker 4.
Mayor, I would like to move to defer that particular amendment to another time until we've had more information from the CEO about other councils.
So you're deferring that amendment. Is there a...
Mr Mayor, point of order, I think we can only defer the item.
No, I just want to clarify, I think you mentioned amendment. We can't do that. And I'm inclined to deal with this matter tonight. We have there's been a lot of consultation. We have a large audience here. Each of us have been lobbied both for and against, so I'm inclined that we deal with this matter. Is there a speaker for the amendment? I'll put the amendment now. This needs to have an absolute majority, the amendment. All these matters have to have an absolute majority. So those in favour of the amendment moved by Councillor McCleary, seconded by Councillor Steck. Those against? It fails because it doesn't have an absolute majority. Councillor Hayward? Sorry, didn't hear that. You record the vote. Those against? 1, 2, Hayward, Jones, McNeil, Brennan, Kelly, Prosser. The rest were for it. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Councillor Hayward.
I'd like to propose to move my amendment to remove Mindalong Beach and the Hartley Anderson Park from our map showing designated on and off leash areas, on the basis that both of these places are not under our management at this time, and that I understand that us making this amendment doesn't change the law because it's a state law, but what it does do is give us the opportunity to not endorse it and to investigate other options.
Before I seek a second, can I just ask the CEO for clarification? My understanding, perhaps it goes to Mr Cowell, what would be the impact of, if that got up, if Council supported Councillor Hayward's position that we don't deal with those areas? How would that stand legally? What would be the result for dog owners?
Through Mr Mayor, they do become on-leash areas, and we'd be required to enforce the regulation or the Dog Act as such.
Okay, so be aware of that, Councillor. Is there a second to that amendment? Councillor Morris. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you. I would encourage councillors to support this amendment. I understand that ultimately, legally, it doesn't make a difference largely, but what it does do is it sends a very clear message that this council is interested in finding a way forward to enable these areas to be off-leash areas. And we've done that already in terms of us seeking the management order, but that may still be some time away. It might take 2 years for that process to run through. And by us removing off our maps any particular designation from us as council, what it does do is it says that I suspect that what it does do is put these areas in a little bit of limbo, even though ultimately, legally, they wouldn't have changed because it's a state government ruling. I note that the city is full of areas that are all on-leash areas that are not marked on our maps. Spencer Street is an on-leash area, it's not marked on our map. So there is no reason for us to have these two areas specifically marked and identified, and I'd suggest by us removing those from our map that we give people the opportunity to realise that council is interested ultimately in looking and making these areas on-leash. So I'd encourage you to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hay. Mr CEO, do you have a feeling for how much time would be required to either get a licence or a management order over these two sections of land?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, certainly I raised it with the Department of Lands yesterday. They don't believe it will be a long period of time. It could be a couple of months at most to actually get a temporary measure. They are looking at issues across the whole of the state at the moment, but certainly we discussed that yesterday and we think we can progress it fairly quickly.
Councillor Morris. Speaker against that amendment. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would love to support this, but I do believe that it would have the reverse effect that Councillor Hayward and Morris are seeking, and that is it would put the process in limbo. I'd like to give the CEO a clear direction on what we want, and that is to get a management order over both those areas. It won't take 2 years, so hopefully it will be resolved within our lifetimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cook, Speaker for the amendment.
Mr. Mayor, can I just have some clarification?
Sure.
On what that actual amendment says. I'm just not quite sure I can pick it up there.
I think you haven't got any words there, Liz.
This is for the removal
from the map. Yeah,
it's
to remove those. Okay, I beg your pardon, Councillor Kelly. Can you just put some words up there, please, Liz? Councillor Hayward moved, Councillor Morris seconded that. The areas indicate on the map attached to the item that we remove the areas south of Hasty Street along the beach, and the area on the eastern portion of Hartley Anderson Reserve be removed from the maps. That, Councillor Hayward, is your intent? That's your amendment?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Speaker for the amendment. Further Speaker for. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say, first of all, that I agree certainly with what Councillor Cook's saying in terms of we're already saying we're going to go down this process. The question is, do we have to have these designated on our maps as of tomorrow that says that these are on-leash areas? They're areas not under our control. There are other areas on our map that are not marked, so there's no particular reason why these ones need to be. And given that in 2 or 3 months they could change anyway, why publish them in the first place is my suggestion. And I just encourage you to support it. Thank you.
Yeah, I've just got a point of order with respect to the amendment. I know that Councillor Hayward, I think, has finished this, but the area on the eastern portion of Hartley Anderson Reserve be removed from the map. The eastern portion is not on the map. It shows as the reserve, but it's not on the map as part of the dog exercise area. It's the western area.
I think the intent of, what's your intent, Councillor Hayward? It is for that.
It's for the area that we're not under control of.
Yeah. Mr. CEO, you're directing me to Mr. Cowell. Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can. The reason, as I said last week at the briefing, is that the area of the Hasty Street South we included on the map was that it'll actually revert back. The land won't be under our control, but the control of dogs in that area will be, and therefore it'll revert back to a public place, and therefore under the Act the dogs will need to be on a leash in a public place, and under Section 31(3) of the Act we'll be obliged to enforce those provisions. So it was colour-coded on the map just to indicate the change from a dog on lead area to dogs must be on leash.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll put this.
May I have a question, please, Mr. Mayor?
A question, certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May we go back and check the votes for the recommendation I put forward, please, into account?
No. I've ruled on that.
There was only 5 names, so there was an absolute majority then.
No, it was lost because you didn't achieve an absolute majority. Yeah.
Would you just look, please?
You didn't record them all? Councillor Hayward was the other one. I beg your pardon, Councillor McGrew, I didn't look at that. Okay, you happy? Not happy with the result.
Is it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll put this amendment of Councillor Hayward's. We're going to get through this, ladies and gentlemen, and councillors, by the end of the evening we'll get through this. All in favour, please indicate. Those against? It's lost. So we have 1 and 2, which is moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded Councillor Hayward. Are there any speakers against 1 and 2? I intend putting them together. Is that okay with everybody? All those in favour, please indicate. Those against? 1. That's carried by an absolute majority. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the result. feel free to liaise with our officers, and I applaud your support for dogs, and perhaps we'll make you all honorary rangers. I'll wait now. If you wish to depart, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. If you wish to depart, I'll hold the meeting in abeyance. I wasn't the rules. Okay, councillors, we'll continue. I note that councillors... Are you coming? It wasn't a break for us. .4.3, Mr Fitzgerald. Welcome to you, Gary. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, Mr CEO, executive staff. My name's Gary Fitzgerald. I'm here to speak for the recommendation tonight, and I thank you for the opportunity to be able to make a brief presentation. I just note that with us tonight as part of the design team we have Mr Alan Philp from DVC, the traffic consultants, Mr Craig Gia and Mr Lloyd Pringle from MCG Architects, and Mr Richard Bell from Perkins. So I know, councillors, that there's no questions, but I'm sure if you had any questions of any particular expertise lay within those gentlemen's fields, I'd be happy to answer any. Councillors, as you know, last week, within the last couple of weeks, the issue of Amendment 79 was obviously dealt with, initiated by councillors, a scheme amendment which was part of the first process as we see it to facilitate this particular development. The next phase, which is being presented to you tonight, in my terms, phase is related to the local development plan and obviously the preliminary development approval. The structural sort of nature of this LDP following the scheme amendment is consistent with guidelines, the city's guidelines, and obviously, as I spoke to last week, councillors, the whole thought process and concept of the upgrading of the neighbourhood centre is consistent with both the city's strategic direction as well as the state's directions through both the city's local planning policy for activity centres and neighbourhoods and, of course, the state's activity centre policy, which designates the particular development as a local neighbourhood centre with the potential for significant increase in size beyond what we're proposing tonight. And what the scheme amendments propose. But the LDP reflects the built form that will be built there, and that's what we're presenting to you tonight, which will show the built form and the integration with the surrounding development. Councillors, I'm sure you'd be familiar with the centre, but I'd like to just highlight a little bit about the project, if I can, within the time allotted to me. Essentially, it consists of three components: a demolition, obviously, of the existing, but importantly, the refurbishment of the demolition relates to the demolition of the Woolworths, refurbishment of the existing, which is on the western side, and of course the third phase being the construction of the new Woolworths development itself. I don't think anyone would disagree that it's well due for a redevelopment, councillors, and it'll be a fantastic development once it's up and running. With the rebuild, we shall be incorporating and upgrading parking, which will be much better laid out, larger sized car bays and aisles, softened with landscaping, and with a significant increase in quantity. And landscaping will be both on ground as well as some vertical landscaping on the walls. In addition, the reconfiguration will include an enhanced and covered but open mall area, which will allow more daylight, improved ventilation, and incorporates more mall seating, end-of-trip facilities. The new covered mall link will be the component that sets the old and the new and precedes the refurbishment of the existing shops. The facade of the building will present as a combination of steel and glass, as well as a selection of applied external claddings. Integrated with canopies and shading devices, the presentation to the street has been a critical consideration of this development, and it will be far enhanced. The existing shops will include significant improvements to the facades, infilling of the mall area, and this arrangement will open opportunities for new food and beverage outlets within the complex and will enliven the atmosphere of the plaza area throughout. Design is focused on improving community amenity, creating more of a local hub and raising the standard of presentation of what is a significant Bunbury landmark and will continue to be one. Council, the issue of access was raised last week, and while we, as I said, we support the recommendation, I would just like to point out that the issue of traffic management is a critical component of the proponents, and the effective management of the site within the area generally is a matter that's taken a lot of precedence in our design. We've engaged the services of an experienced traffic engineer to undertake a comprehensive study of the area to demonstrate the capability of the site and the surrounding network to accommodate the planned uses. The plan has been prepared in reference to the WIPC guidelines, which are a set guideline in preparing a traffic management plan, and it's been strictly linked to that, and includes consideration of existing traffic conditions, forecasting of traffic generated by planned development, consideration of expected operation of the road network and the design year, and consideration of parking and facilities, pedestrian, cyclist, public transport use. Council, following issues raised in regards to the analysis, Mr Veal and through Mr Phillips have done further analysis, which in summary and without going into the technical
sorry,
detail...
Mr Fitzgerald, someone move that we continue for another minute or two. Councillor Kelly. Up to, I've made it ruling 5. Councillor Giles. Another minute.
A couple of minutes will do it. Thank you very much, councillors. And essentially, council, the point I suppose that I make is that the modelling has indicated that even with significantly higher numbers than what you would generally expect, the road traffic network, particularly the Prosser Street entrance, will suffice until at least the year 2026. So it is a significant factor that we've taken into consideration. In fact, rather than negatives to the proposed development, we see a number of positives, such as the permeability of the existing car park. The particular design has been incorporated to take into account the heritage values of the existing Lady Mitchell Health Clinic, so we don't have roads in front of it, and we get the permeability. And it's also taken into consideration a number of users, such as the mothers that take children to school. So the access will facilitate a far easier approach and access for users on that street as well. But basically, and of course, the final comment is that, as you would well appreciate from a commercial perspective, there are operational needs that particular major tenants require. So obviously the proponents are trying to incorporate that within the design that they've put together. Council, finally, I'd probably just say that in regards to the question of consultation with the community, we haven't consulted with the community in any significant fashion at this stage in respect to you and the decision that you need to make in regards to the matters that were being presented to you. But the consultation with the community is a considerable issue that we will take into account, in our communication strategy will obviously identify that, if hopefully as you will support the recommendation tonight. So councillors, thank you very much for the opportunity to briefly present to you tonight, and as I said, we do hope that you support this exciting new development, which will be a great asset for our city. So thank you very much.
Mr Fitzgerald. So I'm prepared to move the executive recommendation. Councillor McCleary. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hayward.
I have a question, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Giles.
Thank you. I just have a question. The redevelopment looks fine. Do we have any guarantee that we have major tenants in those buildings? I mean, we've given up some of the heritage thing for parking, and I'm just a bit concerned it may be developed and we don't know if there's going to be major tenants in that building.
Yeah, Councillor Giles, that matter is not a matter for us to contemplate. We're charged with dealing with the town planning technicalities of it. Further questions? Yes, Councillor Kelly. Yes, please.
It's up there on the screen now will require the preparation of a detailed and integrated vehicle parking and traffic management plan, landscaping plan, stormwater management plan and infrastructure implementation plan that are prepared to the specifications and satisfaction of the local government prior to issuing of any subsequent planning approval.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, did you have a question?
It relates to the issue of community consultation. Given that this matter will go to Western Australian Planning Commission, having run the gauntlet of the EPA, etc., what opportunity do the residents, in particular of Prosser Street, have to express any concerns that they may have?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. I think I can't invite Mr Fitzgerald to come back to address that, but from his discussion tonight with us, I understand that that's certainly part of the intent of the developers to engage very proactively, in my discussions with him elsewhere, very proactively with the whole community. How they do that is up to them, and one of the options for us is to actually invite a forum here. We could host that if Mr Fitzgerald and the directors of the company that owns the plaza wish to do that. That's another option we have. So how they do it is entirely up to them, but we're certainly keen for that to happen.
Thank you.
So we have Councillor McCleary, coming back to you. You have moved this motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I've moved an amendment.
Is there a seconder to Councillor Kelly?
I'll second the amendment if required, but the motion mover and seconder could accept it as a change.
They could do, but I'm just having such a fine time this evening, I thought I'd stretch it out. Do you accept that? Do you, Councillor Hayward? Oh, well, I tried to get debate going, Councillor Steele, but there you go. I'm nice all the time, aren't I, Councillor McCleary? No, it's not your... If you wish to speak against it... No, well, it's now part of the original, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll go back to... I beg your pardon, Councillor McCleary. Go for it. You have 5 minutes.
Councillors, this really, the key here is that it's in principle support in writing that we're giving the company to go ahead with this particular development. And in order for business to go on, we need to say yes to this. And with the amendment that we had in here, which is compact, planning was, traffic planning was the important component. Having that put in there, I think we could safely agree with this, so business can get on and then it will come back to us to see what we agree with, and from there hopefully there'll be public consultation.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward, do you wish to speak?
I just encourage councillors to support it. I think we all know that that area needs redevelopment, so I'd be very keen to see this project move forward, and it'll have my support. Thank you.
Speaker against? I'll put it. All in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Yes, please. Thank you. Councillors, 10.5.1, Councillor Jones has declared impartiality interest. Can I have someone move the executive recommendation? Councillor Morris? Councillor Steele, do you wish to second this one? Is he...
We're off air, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morris, do you wish to speak?
20 years ago, I went on a tour of the United States and Canada and visited a water playground in British Columbia. Came back to the council and actually gave the design of this water playground to the city council. At that time, water playgrounds hadn't yet been to Australia, so I guess it was a virgin territory. Well, since that time, water playgrounds have emerged in many of the design that we have seen is one that I think is unique and is year-round use. And I think that's really important, where it's not just a summer playground, but it can be utilized throughout the year. One of the aspects that I believe that the water playground will perform is actually attract people to Bunbury. And by having it unique, quirky if you like, I believe that having people, instead of going along that roundabout heading down south, I believe that will be a draw card bringing people into Bunbury. So not only is it for our own use in terms of our citizens of Bunbury, I believe that it will also draw tourism into Bunbury and have an economic benefit far and away than just the running cost of this park. Thank you.
Councillor Morris, Councillor Steele. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Stick.
Thank you, sir. Look, I totally disagree with the sentiments of Councillor Morris. This is it's basically a private industry. You're building something like Adventure World or something like Water World in Brisbane. And the other thing is that the parking requirements for people attending that area, there's just not going to be enough room on that particular site. And there's no such thing as year-round use to get wet unless the water is heated. And I don't support spending ratepayers' money in millions of dollars and at least probably $260,000 a year minimum to run. We can't even deliver everything that we want in our budget. We've even Councillor Giles this evening's referred to us culling. And we need to be far much more responsible when it comes to economic management. So, no, totally disagree.
Speaker 4, now's your Councillor Prosser.
Yeah, I'm in support of this motion. It's just logically the next best step for us to get something in concrete. Coming 8, 12 years' time, if we do put this back, when we do find out how much it is going to cost, and then the next council may have to start this process of concepts again. So I think if we get detailed drawings in place, quantity surveyors look at it, at least we've got something in concrete for us to push the button when we're ready to do it. Thanks.
Speaker against. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't disagree and I'd love to see it go on. I'm very concerned about the maintaining and the cost for maintaining it in the future. The cost of it actually being built doesn't perturb me because there are funding out there. So is there any way that we can have in there, or when it comes back to council, if we can also have the costing of what's going to cost us, the ratepayers, to maintain this particular park? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McCleary. Mr CEO, would you like to respond to our whole-of-life costings?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Certainly we will have a look at that when we've got the total cost and the detailed estimates. Part of that we'll be looking at the whole-of-life costing, so Council will be able to make an informed decision before they make that final call going forward with construction.
Further speaker 4, Councillor Jones.
Mr Mayor, it's amazing how water parks do attract all year round, summer and winter. And I had that experience in Sydney at a water park that was concrete, would you believe? But there was a range of people, including a toddler, just able to walk. And I saw the concrete and I did my helicopter grandparent type approach. That kid's going to fall, and sure enough, the kid fell over, got up again and did something else. It was quite amazing. Now that concrete water playground was underneath the Piermont Bridge in Sydney. It attracted a lot of people. And in Sydney, it gets dark at about 4:30 on a winter afternoon. But there were still people there. I don't have any issues about it not being an all-year-round facility because I believe it will be. It will be part of the adventure of the Pat Usher foreshore. It'll be just one of the attractions there. And we've been hanging out for something to happen there for a very long period of time. I'm I'm sure the whole of life costs can be absorbed. We didn't say no to the entertainment centre, did we? And yet the city's been in a position where we've had to do the maintenance on that with very little support over a very long period of time. But for anyone to have said no to that, they would have been a cultural and social villain. So no social or cultural villainy here. I think that we need to support this because it's just another part, it will be another part of Bunbury's vibrancy.
Speaker against? Councillor Morris, right of reply.
Actually, in the background, we see that the city will be, in fact, lobbying state and federal government for funds. So for the capital expenditure, we're looking at outside help in relation with grants. Could be from Lottery West, it could be from the state government itself, the federal royalties for regions. There's a whole host of various agencies or government agencies that could come up with money for us in helping defray costs for the capital. But what about operating costs? Now, it was interesting in Kelowna, in British Columbia, where the water park was located. It was actually built by Rotary Club. And talking with the city officials there, they found a way of thinking outside the box. They had two ways in which they were generating income, in which it was cost neutral to the city. One, they had a parking lot associated to the park in which was charged a much higher fee for parking because of the convenience of going from the parking lot to the water park. Secondly, a kiosk in which was located at the site. Now, because there was literally hundreds of people there, hour after hour after hour, getting cool drinks, getting chips, hot dogs, whatever, the kiosk itself, run by a private operator through a partnership with the city, was able to defray all the operating costs for that park. We need to think outside the box. There are ways in which we can keep the cost to a minimum for our ratepayers. And I believe these are just two of many ideas that we could float in relation once the park is built. Thank you.
I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? One. That's carried. Thank you everybody for attending tonight and your patience and deliberations. I declare the meeting closed at 6:42.